Good morning, you guys. Good morning from the squash patch. I actually have a squash patch this year. This never happens. I have been able to grow some squash here on this farm, but almost always what happens is we either get a cold snap somewhere in July or somewhere in early August, and then these beautiful plants just turn black and I don't end up with squash. They do recover somewhat, but usually it's too late to make fruit for our time. But the reason I am joining you today from the squash patch is because I have heard a lot of talk about squash flowers, male flowers, female flowers, and you guys may not know that there are, in fact, male squash flowers and female squash flowers, and you may be wondering, why does that matter? So I'm going to show you here in just a second. You might be wondering why I am still wearing my chore clothes this morning. That's because our area is experiencing a pretty intense heat wave, and the temperatures are going to be up close to 100 degrees for the next 5 or 6 days. Maybe you live in a hotter area than we do. I mean, we're pretty used to this for this time of year, but it makes working in the garden pretty miserable. So I've been trying to get up, basically just doing the farm chores in the morning, feeding the animals, milking, and then coming out here and doing whatever work. So yesterday I noticed that this garden is looking a little bit weedy, especially at the end of the hoop houses there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this area weeded today, and I thought that would be a perfect opportunity to show you guys some fun facts about squash. So this right here is a pretty good example of what is a female flower. So you have the premature fruit. Here's another one that's starting, and then the flower on the end of it. So the only flowers that turn into fruit are these female flowers. Now obviously, female and male, you have to have a male flower in order to pollinate this female flower. So this guy right here is your male flower. And how do you know it's a male flower? If you look at the bottom, right here, there is no fruit. It just connects straight to the stem. So right here we have a different kind of squash. This is a zucchini, and we have a female flower right here, and then we have the male flower right there. So again, you can tell the difference. So something to note, and it's a little bit frustrating for squash growers, is that the male flower is almost always open prior to the female flower. So you can see this one's already been pollinated. That's why it's so closed. But the male flowers appear about 10 days before you'll start getting these female flowers. There are a few tricks, like my crazy morning hair, it's super fun. There are a few tricks to growing more female squash flowers. I've heard a lot of people getting frustrated this year because they're only getting a ton of male flowers. So some of the tricks that you can make more female flowers with are, number one, make sure you don't have too much nitrogen in your ground, because male flowers love nitrogen. Number two is you can water very, very deeply. Some people say water at nighttime. I find that if I water at nighttime and don't allow my plants, especially if it's a rainy August, which we never know, it's not quite August yet. If you water at nighttime, then I end up seeing a lot of powdery mildew, which is the white powder looking stuff that comes on the leaves. So far this year, I don't have any, which is great. But if the season had continued like it had through June and early July with all of that water, we could have had a problem with that. You can cover your squash plants in order to keep a little bit more moisture off them, but it's a little tricky when it just keeps raining and raining and raining. So I personally find it better to water really deeply in the morning time, but I also know a lot of people who only water at night and they don't seem to have any more or less of a problem. So I guess just see what works best in your garden. So I am certainly not an expert squash grower. Squash is kind of a fringe crop here. We might get a few zucchini and a few like yellow crookneck or something, so summer squash, but winter squash is definitely a bit more tricky. This year though, one of my best tips that seems to be working, and we did get a lot of wind in the early days of the garden, and we had a late start to our garden this year, just with the way that the weather in our area went. But this black agricultural fabric that I've got laid down here seems to be doing the trick. Squash really like heat, and our nights are typically pretty cold. They don't usually get above 65 degrees at nighttime. That's usually where we hover. It's pretty rare for us to have a night that's warmer than that. And so you're cooling down from your day temperatures so much that these squash almost just don't even have a chance. Even a lot of our summer nights, we vary between 45 degrees and 65 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a little rough. So we're just gonna keep on watching this patch. I have noticed that some of my female flowers have aborted their fruit, and so they'll just grow a little bit and they will quit growing. Part of that could be a lack of pollination, and part of that could just be that they're not getting watered deeply enough. And it also could be a lack of fertilizer. I didn't really fertilize this patch a tremendous amount before I started gardening here, but I hadn't gardened in this section for a year, so I may hit them with something like a fish emulsion or maybe even an Epsom salt solution. I haven't decided on which one. If you guys have any suggestions, I don't like to use commercial fertilizers at all. I do have lots of compost, but it's pretty high in nitrogen right now. So if you guys have a suggestion of something that you would do with this, then would you leave it down in the comments? That would be awesome, guys. I want to show you guys some of our harvest from today, and I am really, really excited. I will throw a clip in. I was able to finally give a payment to my mom for all of her hard work here at our farm.
Oh my goodness, it is so absolutely beautiful. It is my first paycheck. We'll work for food.
These both are dead.
They're dead?
Yep.
Yeah. They've been dead, honey.
Yep. Do you know this was an animal?
Yeah. It's exciting, huh?
Yeah. I can't believe this. It's terrific.
Fun thing about broccoli is after you harvest the center head like this, I chose a green sprouting broccoli, then you get all of these side shoots on it, which means more broccoli for you rather than just one head. I did let these go a little bit. It's hard when our days are so hot because I don't like to harvest in the evening. I like to harvest in the morning while everything is nice and moist. But I'm excited about this broccoli harvest. We've already harvested quite a few other heads, and we're waiting on a few more, but I thought this is pretty good.